In part 3, Holmes and Watson travelled to Vienna, where they discovered that Maestro Zimmermann had been murdered with contaminated insulin. They decoded Zimmermann's musical confession revealing the existence of a powerful criminal organisation called the Consortium that controlled European classical music through blackmail and murder. The trail led them to Salzburg, where they found Madame Vasquez hiding with evidence that could destroy the organisation. Their confrontation was interrupted by the arrival of Sir Reginald Blackwood, revealed to be the Consortium's London representative. The basement of the Mozarteum had become a trap, and we were its unwilling occupants. Sir Reginald's cultured voice echoed down the stone stairwell, accompanied by the measured footsteps of what sounded like several men. "Mr. Holmes," he continued conversationally, "surely a man of your intelligence understands that certain institutions require protection from disruption, even if that protection occasionally necessitates unpleasant measures." Holmes moved swiftly to the small window near the ceiling, testing its security bars. Finding them immovable, he returned to our defensive position near the piano. "Inspector Hoffman," he whispered, "how many officers await outside?" "2 patrol cars, sir. 4 armed men." "Against how many of them?" Before the inspector could answer, Sir Reginald appeared in the doorway, flanked by 3 men in expensive overcoats. Despite their refined appearance, the bulges beneath their jackets clearly indicated weapons. "Madame Vasquez," Sir Reginald said with a theatrical bow, "what an extraordinary performance you gave at the Opera House. Truly, the audience was mesmerized by your final act." Elena Vasquez rose from behind the piano, her chin lifted defiantly. "Reginald, you always were a showman first and a gentleman second." "Business is business, my dear Eleanor. You of all people should understand the economics of artistic excellence. The Consortium has invested heavily in maintaining stability in our industry." Holmes stepped forward, his voice cutting through the civil veneer of the conversation. "By stability, you mean the systematic elimination of genuine talent in favour of mediocre performers who can be controlled through financial dependence and blackmail." Sir Reginald's expression hardened. "Mr. Holmes, you have always been too idealistic for your own good. Do you have any concept of the chaos that would result if every talented musician believed they deserved success based purely on merit? The market cannot support infinite excellence. Someone must manage the supply. And if management requires occasional murder? Regrettable necessities, nothing more. Poor Friedrich, for instance, his conscience overcame his business sense. Most unprofessional." I watched Holmes carefully, recognizing the signs of his mind working at exceptional speed. His eyes moved from Sir Reginald to his companions, assessing angles, distances, and possibilities. "Sir Reginald," Holmes said suddenly, "before you implement whatever solution you have planned for this inconvenience, perhaps you would indulge my curiosity about the technical aspects of Madame Vasquez's disappearance. As an admirer of theatrical innovation, I confess myself impressed by the execution." Sir Reginald could not resist the opportunity to display his cleverness. "Ah, yes, quite ingenious, really. Did you know, Mr. Holmes, that modern holographic projection technology has advanced far beyond the simple tricks used in music halls?" "Holographic projection?" "Precisely. For the past year, we have been installing sophisticated projection equipment in major concert halls throughout Europe, ostensibly for enhanced visual effects during performances. The Opera House system was completed just 3 weeks before Eleanor's final performance." Holmes nodded thoughtfully. "So the audience was watching a hologram while the real Madame Vasquez was spirited away through backstage passages." "Not entirely accurate. They were watching the real Elena for most of the performance. The substitution occurred during the power surge you no doubt detected, a mere 2 seconds during which holographic projection replaced reality. Quite seamless, really." "And the continuing music after the disappearance?" pre-recorded, of course, synchronized with the projection. Elena had been recording all her performances for months, providing us with perfect acoustic material for the deception. Madame Vasquez's voice carried a note of bitter irony. Reginald always appreciated the technical aspects more than the artistic ones. But something went wrong, Holmes continued. Maestro Zimmermann was supposed to facilitate the illusion, but instead he helped her escape genuinely. Sir Reginald's face darkened. Friedrich developed an inconvenient attachment to principle. Instead of directing Eleanor to the elimination chamber we had prepared, he guided her through a maintenance tunnel to the street. By the time we realized the deception, she had vanished into London's underground railway system. The elimination chamber? A small room beneath the stage, equipped with, well, let us say it was designed to ensure that Elena's disappearance would be permanent in more than just the theatrical sense. I felt my blood chill at the casual manner in which Sir Reginald discussed murder. You plan to kill her during her own performance? Business, Doctor Watson. Nothing personal. Elena had become a liability to the entire European classical music establishment. Her threats of exposure could have cost thousands of people their livelihoods. Their criminal livelihoods, Inspector Hoffman interjected, his hand still on his weapon. Sir Reginald smiled coldly. Inspector, you seem to labour under the misconception that law and justice are synonymous. The Consortium represents a higher form of organisation, one based on practical necessity rather than abstract principle. Holmes had been studying the room's acoustics during this exchange, and I noticed him testing the resonance of various surfaces. Suddenly, he moved to the old piano and struck a series of keys in rapid succession. The sound that emerged was not music, but a complex harmonic pattern that seemed to penetrate the building's structure itself. Within moments, we heard running footsteps above and the sound of doors slamming throughout the conservatory. "What did you do?" Sir Reginald demanded. "I activated the building's emergency alert system," Holmes replied calmly. "This particular piano is connected to the conservatory's security network, a precaution installed after several valuable instruments were stolen last year. Your associate upstairs should be receiving some unwelcome visitors shortly." Indeed, the sound of police sirens was already audible through the basement windows. Sir Reginald's companions shifted nervously, their hands moving toward their weapons. "Sir Reginald," Holmes continued, "you might consider the mathematics of your situation. Inspector Hoffman's colleagues are converging on this building. Madame Vasquez's evidence will soon be in the hands of international authorities, and your entire organisation is about to be exposed. Surely a businessman of your calibre recognises an unfavourable risk-to-reward ratio." For a moment Sir Reginald appeared to consider this logic. Then his expression hardened with desperate resolve. "Mr. Holmes, you underestimate both my commitment and my resources. The Consortium has contingency plans for every scenario, including the regrettable necessity of eliminating inconvenient investigators." He nodded to his companions, who began advancing toward us with weapons drawn. But Holmes had positioned himself strategically near the room's acoustical centre, and as the men approached, he struck the piano keys again, this time producing a sustained, piercing note that seemed to reverberate through every surface. The effect was remarkable. The sound, amplified and focused by the room's architectural design, became physically painful to hear. Sir Reginald's men staggered, their hands instinctively moving to cover their ears. In that moment of confusion, Inspector Hoffman acted. His police training evident in every movement, he disarmed the nearest attacker and positioned himself to cover the others. The sound of footsteps on the stairs above indicated that reinforcements were arriving. Sir Reginald, however, had drawn his own weapon and was aiming it directly at Madame Vasquez. "Gentlemen," he said with deadly calm, "you may have won this particular engagement, but Eleanor's testimony dies with her. Holmes stepped between the gun and its target. Sir Reginald, before you add another murder to your considerable list of crimes, consider this. Madame Vasquez has not been our only source of information about the Consortium's activities. Meaning? Meaning that for the past 3 days, agents of the International Criminal Police Commission have been conducting simultaneous raids on Consortium facilities throughout Europe. Your organization's financial records, communication networks, and membership lists are already in the hands of law enforcement agencies in 6 countries. Sir Reginald's face went pale. Impossible. We would have been warned. By whom? Your network of corrupted officials? I'm afraid many of them are currently under arrest as well. The Consortium's greatest weakness was always its reliance on the assumption that it could corrupt anyone. You never considered the possibility that some people might be incorruptible. The sound of heavy boots on the stairs was now unmistakable. Within moments, the basement filled with armed Austrian police officers, their weapons trained on Sir Reginald and his remaining associates. Sir Reginald Blackwood, Inspector Hoffman announced formally, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and numerous violations of international law. As the handcuffs closed around Sir Reginald's wrists, he looked at Holmes with something approaching admiration. Mr. Holmes, how long have you known of my involvement? From our very first meeting, Holmes replied. Your performance as the concerned opera director was convincing, but you made several crucial errors. You knew too much about technical details that would not have been apparent to a casual observer. You showed no surprise when I mentioned the missing performance gang, though I had not previously mentioned it to you. Most tellingly, you failed to express any genuine concern for Madame Vasquez's welfare, something that would have been natural for a legitimate administrator. And the international investigation you mentioned? Quite real, I assure you. I contacted my colleagues at the Yard before we departed for Vienna. Madame Vasquez's evidence provided the foundation for coordinated action across multiple jurisdictions. As Sir Reginald and his associates were led away, Madame Vasquez approached Holmes with tears of gratitude in her eyes. Mr. Holmes, how can I ever repay you? You have given me back my life and my freedom. Madame, Holmes replied gently, the world of music has been returned a great artist. That is payment enough. Inspector Hoffman gathered the documentary evidence that would complete the case against the Consortium. Herr Holmes, this investigation will likely take years to fully resolve. The organization's tentacles reach into dozens of institutions across Europe. But the head has been severed, Inspector. Without Sir Reginald's coordination and the organization's financial resources, the remaining members will find themselves powerless. As we prepared to leave the Mozarteum, I reflected on the extraordinary complexity of the case we had just solved. What had appeared to be an impossible supernatural disappearance had proven to be an elaborate technological deception designed to conceal murder. Holmes, I said as we walked through Salzburg's moonlit streets, how did you know to involve international law enforcement so quickly? Elementary, Watson. The scale of the conspiracy was evident from our first day of investigation. No single criminal organization could have accomplished what we observed without extensive international connections and resources. The only effective response was coordinated international action. And if your bluff about the raids had proven false? Holmes smiled. It was no bluff, my dear fellow. While we were interviewing orchestra members in London, I was also dispatching coded telegrams to colleagues throughout Europe. The machinery of justice was already in motion before we departed for Vienna. 3 weeks later, we received a letter from Madame Elena Vasquez, posted from Barcelona, where she was preparing for her return to public performance. My dear Mr. Holmes and Dr. Watson, she wrote, I made my first public appearance last evening since the events in London. As I took the stage, I thought of poor Friedrich and his sacrifice to save not just my life, but the integrity of our art. The audience response was overwhelming, not because they thought they were witnessing something supernatural, but because they were hearing genuine, uncorrupted musical expression. Perhaps that is the most fitting memorial to all who suffered under the Consortium's tyranny. Music itself, free once again to speak the truth. Holmes set the letter aside and returned to his morning paper, but I noticed him humming softly, a melody I recognized as the opening theme of Brahms's violin concerto. "The case is closed, then?" I asked. "This case, yes. But Watson, in exposing the Consortium, we have likely created a dozen new mysteries. Criminal organizations of such scope do not simply vanish when their leadership is arrested. There will be successor groups, revenge plots, and attempts to recover hidden assets. More adventures, in other words." Holmes looked up from his paper, his grey eyes twinkling with familiar anticipation. "My dear Watson, did you ever doubt it? The game, as always, is afoot." And indeed, even as we spoke, Mrs. Hudson was climbing the stairs with another urgent telegram, another impossible mystery, another call to adventure. Some things, I reflected with satisfaction, never change. The vanishing violinist had been found, her would-be murderers brought to justice, and a criminal conspiracy spanning half of Europe had been destroyed through the application of logic, deduction, and unwavering commitment to truth. In the end, that is all any detective can accomplish. Not the prevention of all evil, but the patient, methodical restoration of order from chaos, one case at a time. The violin plays on, and the melody is truth itself. And so concludes The Vanishing Violinist, one of Sherlock Holmes's most extraordinary cases, spanning from the impossible disappearance at the Royal Opera House to the international conspiracy that threatened the very soul of classical music. Thank you for following this thrilling investigation to its dramatic conclusion. If you enjoyed this adventure, don't forget to like and subscribe for more mysteries featuring the world's greatest detective. Ring that bell icon to be notified when our next Sherlock Holmes adventure is released. Because in the world of crime and deduction, there's always another case waiting to be solved.